So don't take for granted the right that you can ask questions in Christianity. Do you have, so let me ask you this way, do you have questions? Do you have maybe painful ones? Do you have questions that hurt even for you to ask? Do you have questions touching your faith, whether it's, where you're questions where you're struggling with unbelief, questions that question the goodness of God, whether the whole thing with God, life with God, makes sense. Do you have those questions? And you should then be encouraged by the book of Job, actually, because Job, in his crazy, mad struggle with grief and illness and loss, had said some pretty tough things to God, and had asked quite a few hard things. He even asked some really bitter questions, and then of course what happens is that in before chapter 42, for a while God speaks to him, and God kind of puts him to silence and tells him that bitterness and pride are never warranted towards God. But then, chapter 42, verse 7, he says, "It was so that after the Lord had spoken these words unto Job," and parenthetically, Job answered to him back, "the Lord said to Eliphaz the Temanite, My wrath is kindled against you and against your two friends, for you have not spoken of me the thing that is right, as my servant Job has." What? Job spoke correctly. Lord, have you listened? And okay, so how are we to understand that whole conversation? Well, the interesting conclusion is that God doesn't seem to have minded Job asking really tough questions. God did not mind Job speaking from his pain and with his pain in a way. But God did mind bitterness, okay, and pride in Job's heart, okay, and self-pity is, the kind of pride that Job was struggling with here. But then, well, not pride and self-pity and bitterness, because there is no one in creation who may justifiably point an accusing finger to God in creation. There's just no one in creation who can point to God accusingly, who can point a finger to God accusingly and be correct about that. And God tells that to Job very clearly. But God knew that Job actually had a humble heart under all that pain and all that bitterness. And you can see this in Job's response in these chapter 42, verse 1 through 6. You can see that Job is in fact very humble in replying to God. And after being rebuked, Job very quickly admits his failure and his hard attitude. And then God says Job, in fact, wasn't wrong to ask all those hard questions, and I think that is a great encouragement for us to consider that actually those hard questions may be asked of God. Yeah, well, not accusingly, not bitterly, but like, I have to watch my hard attitude. But other than that, I can actually pose those tough questions to God, and I can ask His help about them. And so don't take that for granted, but use that opportunity. Be very honest in your prayers and in your questions with God, because He doesn't mind. He is not insecure about the whole thing. So God bless your day with that thought.